The first son of Geb and Nut, Osiris, was tall, slender, and handsome, with jet black hair. When his father Geb gave up the reigning power over Egypt and retired into the heavens, Osiris took over the kingship and married his sister, the beautiful Isis. Under his wife's authority, the Egyptians were persuaded to renounce cannibalism. He taught them farming and the pleasures of music, and he framed a just legal code for them. Egypt flourished peacefully under his rule. Then, Osiris went off to civilize the rest of the world and brought the same blessings to Europe, the Near East, and the Orient. In his absence, Isis reigned as queen of Egypt, and the land continued to prosper. However, Osiris had an ugly and evil brother with red coarse hair, like an ass's pelt. This was Set, a born plotter who envied the power and attractiveness of his elder brother. Set had another reason for hating Osiris. His own wife Nephthys had conceived a child by Osiris, the jackal-headed Anubis. By bribery and cunning, Set gained many allies during Osiris's absence, and together they devised a plan for the king's death.
When it was announced that Osiris will return, Set held a banquet and invited his brother. After the festivities, Set had a beautiful chest brought forth and said that it would belong to the person who fitted it perfectly. After everyone had tried, Osiris stepped into the chest. Then Set and his toadies slammed the lid shut and sealed the joints with lead. Osiris suffocated, the chest was thrown into the Nile, and Set became the king of Egypt. When Isis learned of her husband's death, she traveled along the Nile in the deepest grief, searching for the chest containing Osiris. She found Anubis, who had been abandoned by Nephthys, and she nursed and educated him. Isis continued looking for Osiris through repeated discouragements, until one day, she learned the chest had sailed to Phoenicia, where a tamarisk tree had enveloped it within its trunk. Isis went to Phoenicia and found the tree in the king's palace, serving as a pillar. Isis taught the court ladies the art of perfumery and hairdressing, and upon meeting the queen Ishtar, she was engaged as a nurse of Ishtar's infant son. At night, she performed a magic ritual to make the infant immortal by burning his mortal parts, but Ishtar interrupted the ceremony and the spell was broken. Then Isis revealed herself as a goddess on all her glory and asked to have the chest in the palace pillar. At Ishtar granted the request, and Isis returned to Egypt with the chest.
Aided by Nephthys, Isis revived Osiris through magic and conceived a son by him. And Set then put her in prison, from which she escaped through the help of Anubis. Isis fled to the swamps of the Nile Delta, and living like a peasant, she gave birth to Osiris' son, Horus the Hawk, born to avenge his father's murder. In fear of Set, Isis raised Horus in seclusion. The boy was beaten by beasts, stung by a scorpion, and suffered intense pain throughout his childhood, and only his mother's witchcraft managed to save him. Often, Osiris would appear to the young Horus to instruct him to the arts of war in preparation for the coming battle with Set. Horus grew to manhood as a valiant, handsome young general. In time, Set learned of Horus' existence and of his destiny to take over the throne of Egypt. Seth also learned that Isis possessed the chest containing Osiris' corpse. So at night, Seth would hunt through the Nile Delta in search of the chest. At length, he found it and cut Osiris' body into 14 pieces and threw them into the Nile.
Isis was appalled at this second calamity to befall her husband, but with her customary patience, she collected 13 pieces of Osiris' body from the river. Horus, having learned the art of sorcery, and was able to join his father's body together again. However, Osiris' genital had been eaten by some fish, so Isis was obliged to make a model of them. By this time, Horus had gathered an army with which to attack Seth. Under Seth's reign, Egypt had become parched and infertile, and many of Seth's followers were deserting to serve Horus. After restoring his father's body, Horus set out to wreak vengeance on the dreadful king. Seth and Horus fought furiously for 3 days and nights in hand-to-hand combat, and Seth was defeated. Horus turned the wretched captive over to his mother Isis and went off to pursue and kill Seth's followers. Seth seemed merely pitiable in chains, and using all his power of persuasion, he talked the forgiving Isis into releasing him. When Horus returned and learned of this, his anger was so great that he chopped off his mother's head. The god thought, then replaced Isis' head with that of the cow goddess Hathor and brought her back to life.
Together, Horus and Isis pursued Seth, and when they met, the fighting was even more intense. Seth managed to grab Horus' eye and tear it out, but Horus wrested it back and finally drove Seth into the Red Sea forever. Horus and Isis then returned to the temple where Osiris' body lay. Horus embraced the body and fed it his own eye that had been torn out, and Osiris revived as a truly godlike personage. Next, Horus prepared a ladder for his father to ascend into heaven. By this means, Osiris rose into the sky with Isis on one side of him and Nephthys on the other. The gods sat in judgment on him, and with Tut and his advocate, Osiris was declared to have lived a pure and fruitful life. From there, Osiris went to the seat of judgment, where he in turn was allowed to judge the souls of the dead. Horus was recognized by the gods as being Osiris' legitimate son and the rightful heir to the throne of Egypt. Under his dominion, Egypt grew fruitful again, and he sired 4 pure sons from whom the entire line of Egyptian Pharaoh descended.